What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today I am looking ahead to the top 5 fights in June. We had a pretty good month of May with some absolute bangers, but we have a lot of really good stuff coming up in June. So much so that I'm absolutely cheating this time around. I'm giving you 8 fights, and you know what? I'm going to start off with my kind of honorable mentions because I really couldn't bring these down to just 5 because there are so many really good fights coming up this month. And you know, great fights from a lot of different places. The UFC has some very good cards. Bellator have their card of the year coming up. PFL are coming back with 3 good cards, and One Championship have a very good card as well. First fight I want to touch on here is from One Championship, right? And it's a very interesting fight. I was looking through their card. They're coming up, the One Championship 11 card here, and one of the names that stuck out to me, Jeremy Miada. He did a great win there recently. And he's fighting a guy called Mansur Malachiev, and I hadn't seen him before, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go on and watch a bit of him. I'm going to be previewing that card anyway. I might as well, I'll kill 2 birds with the one stone. Ooh, and this is very interesting. He's 10-0. Is Mansur coming over from Russia for his first fight here? He's fought a lot in EFC. The record of the lads he's fought in his last 3: 8-1, 12-0, 6-1. So he's been fighting some good guys and beating them. I think he's choked out all 3 of them in the first, second, and third round. And he's fighting Jeremy Miada, who's 10-4 at the moment, but he's on a really good run. He's won his last 4 fights in a row. Beat Daniel Williams there at the end of last year. Knocked him out. I think it was in the 3rd round. A very, very, very good fighter, and that's one to definitely keep an eye on because that's in their 115-pound strawweight division, and their champion there is looking for challengers, and the winner of this really could be one. We know how good his wrestling is, and you look at Malachiev, and his wrestling is phenomenal. I was watching one of his fights. He was fighting against a submission artist, and he took him down. He didn't care. He's like, yeah, try to submit me. Miada's going to come out and he's going to try to throw his big shots, and I guarantee you he'll try to do the same thing to him. So that's one of my honorable mentions. And you know what? It might be one of my top 5. I'm just going to give you a top 8 here. We'll call it top 5, but this is kind of a top 8. I really, really, really like that fight, and that's definitely one that sticks out to me. Another one here, people will probably be surprised it's not. It's only an honorable mention, but it's, as I said, Nemkov versus Romero. That's this month as well. What a fight that is going to be. I absolutely cannot wait for that. I've always been a massive admirer of Yoel Romero, but seeing him live and in person fighting in Dublin last year, it was just like... This guy is a different sort of beast. Like, he's a different sort of human being. I remember I was this is a funny story. I was coming on the Lewis, which is like the light rail system in Dublin, to the middle Bellator, UFC Dublin, we should say. And Karl Benjamin, I was sitting alongside him and I was talking away to him. I was like, he was fighting a middleweight at that time, up a weight class, and I was like, oh God Almighty, this guy he's a different sort of beast, like just strong. You walk past him and you get blown over by how strong he was. And then standing alongside Yoel Romero, it was a different level again. It was like, this guy, oh my God, he's just a massive a man. And he's fighting Nemkov, who himself is a massive a man as well, and a very good tactical and technical fighter. But when the most intriguing thing for me about this fight is, and honestly, it's the second most intriguing fight on the card, and that's how good a card this Bellator event is, and we'll talk more about the other fight in a second. But with all your ability and tactics and technical ability and all of that, Yoel Romero brings you something that you have to adjust for. Look at Adesanya, right? One of the best technical fighters in the world over the last few years, and he had to adjust totally because he was fighting Romero. He's a different beast. And as I said, I saw him up close and in person only a few months ago, a few wet weeks ago, we'll call it, and he was still that. It's not like he's changed and he's old now or anything. He is still that. And okay, you could say maybe it wasn't the toughest matchup in the world against Melvin Manhoef, but God Almighty, the way he moved, you can't fake that. And when you're sitting there cage side to see it, it's different. And Nemkov is going to have to work with that. You know, he's going to have to he's going to have to put pay to that. He's going to have to get through that, and he's going to have to win that fight beyond it. Now, before I talk about the rest of this fight and the rest of these fights, this is not my breakdown of the fights or anything. This is why I'm excited about these fights. These are my top. This is the fan Johnny Sheehan here for a minute, not media one. I'll be doing previews for, I think, apart from the UFC ones, literally all of these cards, so we'll get more in depth in the fights in a minute. But the reason I'm excited for this is primarily to see how Nemkov can deal with the uniqueness of Yoel Romero, because it's a very, very tough thing to deal with. Can that uniqueness of Yoel Romero beat the unmoving ability that Nemkov has showed over the last while? And if it can, well, we're in for a treat. We're in for a real treat of a fight. We're in for a treat of Yoel Romero being a champion as well. And God almighty, I think a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing that. Well, maybe if you're not a Nemkov fan or something like that. But Nemkov, very, very good fighter too. I wouldn't put it past him. And, I'll give him my pick at the time. That's going to be a hard one. To get past. The other honourable mention I'm going to mention is in the same division, because the winner of this fight could be fighting them, and that is Karl against Alex Polizzi. I'll throw a bit of Irish bias in there as well, pulling up Karl, but that's a fight on that card as well that I think should have big implications. They're both guys in the top 10, both guys on win streaks, both guys who are absolute beasts, and if you put them in there, like, okay, Polizzi has fought Romero before, so maybe if the two of them win, maybe that's not going to happen. But if you're Karl and you win that fight and you're on the streak that you're on, I think you're within reason to be calling for a title fight. Now, I know there's some other guys there with, calls as well, but if, you beat Polizzi after winning your last fight, after the fight before that, you beat Albrechtsen, who is ranked as well, you're right up there in my opinion. You're right, and we leave the Irish boys aside, you are. And, if anyone is stood alongside Karl as well, you put him in there with a Nemkov, you put him in there with a Romero, that's fun stuff, former Cage Warriors, light heavyweight champion as well. So this is not a guy who's, wet behind the ears or anything. He's been around for a good while, and he's going to go in there against Polizzi. Tough matchup for both guys. But the winner that, I think if Polizzi wins and Nemkov wins, he could be in with a shout. If Romero wins, not so much. I think if Moore wins, no matter who wins in between Nemkov and Romero, he could be in it with a shout as well. And also, if you make a big statement on the same card where the title fight is in, it's an inbuilt advantage. So, Karl Moore, big early knockout there or something like that, and it's full speed ahead Dublin, I think, because Bellator, we've seen the upcoming Dublin card with the middleweight title fight on it. We had another middleweight title fight on it previously. We had the lightweight title fight on it as well. So they're happy to put on title fights in Dublin. And, if Karl Moore could be one of the guys that has earned his place with a win here to get it, it could be absolutely massive as well. So those are, two fights in that Bellator card. That big one championship fight as well. Absolutely rip-roaring stuff here. So yeah, let's get into it. Those are the honourable mention, but they're not really. Those are like fights 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to start off with, and I'm going to go in chronological order. Is that how you say it? Is chronological by date? I know it's by number, but is it by date as well? Yeah, I'm going to go in order of date. Shall we just say it like that? And the first one here is on the 3rd of June, so the opening weekend of the month, and it is a fantastic fight. Now, it's on KSW 83. It's for the lightweight championship between the champion and the interim champion. The interim champion also happens to be the featherweight champion. That's Salahdine Parnasse. He's fighting Marian Ziolkowski, and this is a brilliant fight. Now, I said a minute ago that I'm not going to be doing my technical breakdown necessarily of these fights. I will leave that, and I actually have, it might be out even before this, around the same time as this, a preview for this card coming up. But the difference between this one and maybe some of the other ones is the reason why I'm massively excited for it is the technical breakdown. I think this fight, right, is a one where you're probably listening to this and you're like, okay, KSW do good stuff. I know they have good fighters. I know a lot of fighters stay there longer than they would in other promotions because they're paid so well. I think people probably have a knowledge of that, whether it's Khalidov, whether it's Gamrat, who's obviously in the UFC now, or Saldic, who recently moved over to One Championship, that they have very, very good fighters. These are two of the guys you need to know next, right? Because this is one of the best technical matchups you will get outside of the UFC this year, every year, any year. This is a brilliant, 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 brilliant fight. I cannot stress it enough. Parnasse has won all of his fights barring one. And the one he lost, he beat him 2 fights later, right? He has won at his own weight, he's won above a weight, and now he's looking to unify at the weight above. Marian is the champion. He is an excellent fighter, and he is a guy who you do not want to be messing with. This is his 4th defense, and he has deserved all of them. The fight itself, look, and here's why the breakdown I think is very and why the technical matchup is brilliant, because Parnasse and Ziolkowski are both strikers, both high-level strikers, and not just all predominantly strikers. Let's say they can do it all, but it's a matchup between guys at a level that you never see outside of the UFC, and you know what? You rarely see it in the UFC. That's how good these guys are. They've been around for a good while. They still have youth on their side, and they have ungodly ability. Parnasse is one of those fighters who, and I've said this in my preview, so I won't repeat it all, but just for the sake of this video as well, he's such a good defensive fighter. He frustrates his opponents and becomes a good offensive fighter, preying on their frustration. The intelligence of him, he is one of the most intelligent fighters in the world. He's absolutely brilliant, and when he needs to, when he has to, he opens up with those shots, preys on his victims nearly that he has opened up by his defensive ability, and then just beats them up. And the longer the fight goes, the tougher it gets on the opponents, because they can't hit him and he can hit them, and the harder they try, the easier it gets for him, right? But to do that, it's not that you need a willing opponent, but you need an opponent who you have a massive advantage over. If someone is as good as you at doing that, it's going to be tougher. There are very little of them in the world, right? At featherweight or lightweight, you're looking at the top of the divisions in the UFC, Bellator, wherever it might be. But now he has found another one in Ziolkowski. He's very flowy. I described him in the preview as John Jones-like. He's very tall. He has a big size advantage over Parnasse. He uses that length very, very well. And he's good cardio too. So it's not just one of these ones. He's good for him around 2 rounds, 2.5 rounds. He can go for 5 rounds at that pace and stay strong doing it. And if Parnasse waits for Ziolkowski to make that mistake, it's funny, what the next sentence I assume you're expecting from me here is he's not going to make it. I think he'll make it very early. In fact, he will continue to make mistakes, but also do things right all the time, because he throws so many shots. He gives you so many looks. But the thing is, because he gives you so many looks, you don't know what the next look coming is. So to prey on those mistakes like Parnasse does against other lads, it's not that easy. This is high level versus high level stuff here. And that's why I'm excited about this fight. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know if Parnasse is going to be able to do to Ziolkowski what he's done to everyone else. I really, really don't. And the other way around, I don't know if Marian's going to be able to do to Salahdine what he's done to everyone else. And that is kind of just jab them up, kick their legs, kick their body, work around them, flow around them, and win the fight. I'm telling you, trust me on this. This is high-level stuff. High-level stuff. And it's going to be a really good fight in front of 50,000 people. If you don't know it, check out the preview show. I'll leave it at that. I'll tell you about it over there. Absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. The next fight I'm going to look at is also absolutely massive, and that is the next week. And that is Nunes versus Aldana at UFC 289, which goes down on June 10th. It's the main event, obviously, over in Canada. Canada are getting a few fights back again, finally, after what feels like a long time. And I remember coming on here at the start of last year, and I gave my top 5 fights I'm looking forward to in the year, and I said Nunes versus Pena. Obviously, this was after the first one, after Pena had beaten Nunes, and the reason I gave, and some people are like, yeah, are you serious? But the reason I gave that is a similar reason to why I'm giving this. It's the level of intrigue in what happens. It's basically, in 3 words, how Nunes looks. Because you look at the first fight against Pena, right? And look, anyone who's never seen a fight before could tell you, oh, she didn't do very well there. She didn't look great. And, I'm sure she won't mind me saying that. She'll be saying that herself. But I think it takes maybe a softer eye to look at the second fight and kind of say, well, she won that fight, but that's not the special fighter who we saw knock out both Cyborg and Ronda Rousey in 99 seconds combined. That's not the fighter that destroyed Miesha Tate, that destroyed everyone. The GOAT. Like, literally, and it'll take a lot for me to change my mind on this. If she gets knocked out in 4 seconds, I still won't change my mind. She is the GOAT and will remain that for a long time to go, right? But, the GOAT in association football is Roy Keane, and he's 45 or 50 years old right now, and he's no longer the GOAT. So you don't always stay the GOAT, You don't always stay the GOAT. And I think I know the reason I am most intrigued by this fight is to see where Nunes is. Because, and I'm going to open up about this more even on the betting show, because, spoiler alert, but one of my bets is almost certainly going to be Aldana. We'll see what the price is when we come closer to it. But I think, and what I said there a second ago about is looking at, with maybe a softer eye at the second Pena fight, I don't think she looked good. And was it a case of she's no longer the same fighter? Or was it a case of she had a very off night the first time, and this second fight was all about getting the win back, conquering the demons and all that? Now they're all conquered, she can move on, and she's going to look like the legend again in this one. Maybe. If she does, I look silly and my bet will be wrong. Right? But here's my opinion, and I'll give it to you straight. My opinion is Nunes is not what she once was. And my opinion is I don't think she's going to recapture it. Right? I don't think she is. But I don't know. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there actually that agree with me, funnily enough. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that's saying, I'm a bit disrespectful. And it's not me being disrespectful. To be honest, it's really not. I'm getting paid here to sit down and make a video. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what I believe. The people listening to this are the people who I'm making this video for and watching this. And that's my belief. That is my belief. I don't know I don't think she can get it back. But Conor McGregor once famously said, have I been wrong yet? I have been wrong many times. So I very well may be wrong again. And you know what? I'd be delighted if I was wrong again, because we'll have a great fight, and maybe we'll have the greatest fighter of all time back. But that's the beauty of it. And that's why I'm intrigued by this one, because we'll have one of two things, I think. We'll either have the GOAT back, or we'll maybe have the GOAT gone. But we'll see. June 10th, we will see. Speaking of GOATs, the Bellator GOAT is in my third fight, and that is on June 16th at Bellator 297, and that is Patricio Pitbull, who goes down in weight to take on Sergio Pettis. Now, 2 months in a row I've given you Bellator fights that I've given out about, but I love, because I didn't necessarily think the Fabian Edwards-Mousasi one was the best fight in the world. I turned out to be wrong about that. I thought it'd be a good fight, but which I actually kind of turned out to be wrong about as well, because it wasn't a great fight. But I didn't think it'd make sense, because I thought it was an unnecessary risk. I was wrong on that, because Fabian won and goes on to meet Johnny Eblen in Ireland here for the title coming up. And this one is, look, you have people waiting at featherweight. You have Bachi mixed weight and at bantamweight, who is very unlucky not to be fighting for the title right now, considering he's the interim champion and the tournament champion, and Pettis was in the tournament, and they're just completely bypassing him. I think it's unfair, but I like my fun as well. And this is a great fight, and a very interesting fight, because obviously Pitbull was the lightweight fight. He let that go and became the featherweight champ. Sorry, he was the lightweight champ, featherweight champ, and now he's trying to become the bantamweight champion. Look, there's a lot of intrigue around this. Can he make the weight? First things first. Like, he's not the biggest guy. He wasn't the biggest guy at 155, certainly at 145. I wouldn't say he's a tiny 145, or, he's not the biggest 145er either, but I think he is a genuine 145er, and it's going to take a lot out of him to get down to 135. Can he do it? That's the first question. Can he do it? The second question is, how is he going to look at that weight? Like, we've seen it with fighters before. Look at TJ Dillashaw when he went down to 125 and nearly killed him. He had to fucking take EPO to get down there. I was going to say allegedly. There's no need to say allegedly he did. But look at Anthony Pettis, Sergio's brother. He'll know well. He went down to 145, didn't look great, went back up. And for some people, they look great. Look at, say, Aldo. It took him, obviously, a while. His first fight, it was a close fight, and, a lot of people, we can debate about that, but then he looked very good after it. Look at Edson Barboza. He's looked very good. Why am I naming all Brazilians here? it's funny, but they did, and they looked good when they did it. And, I want another fellow Brazilian in Patricio. Can he do it as well? It's very, very interesting. I don't know the answer to it, and that's why it's on my list here. And then the fight itself, look, we'll talk about the fight itself when it comes closer, but if they could get a 3-way champion, obviously it's not concurrent, so it's not, it's not the same or whatever, but if they could get a guy who's won belts at 3 different weights, Patricio goes down as one of the top fighters in history. He goes up there with Fedor as like, who's the best fighter ever that never fought in the UFC. He really does. He's right up there. Like, you cannot ignore that ability, that claim, if he has that silverware in his back pocket. You cannot ignore it. No way. So this is a massive fight. This is a legacy fight. This is, a game-changing fight for Patricio, and look, for Pettis as well. This is probably one of the biggest fights of his career. But you have to hand it to the Pettis brothers, like Sergio as well. I remember talking to him, I interviewed him a couple of years back when he went to Bellator, and I was like, when did you realize you were better than Anthony? Because I truly believe he is a better fighter than Anthony, and what he has achieved is right up there as well. Beating Horiguchi in the way he beat him, winning the title. Now if he could win this, it's massive. It's a game changer for Sergio as well, and it's a fight. It's a great fight. As I said, we'll talk more about the fight when the fight comes up, but that's a very, very interesting one, and it means a whole lot. It really, really does mean a whole lot. Next fight I'm going to talk about on the same night, June 16th at PFL 6. And maybe a few people are maybe surprised I'm picking this fight, but there's a reason behind it. And the fight is Ante Delija versus Maurice Greene. And the reason I'm picking this fight is very, very simple. Francis Ngannou, right? So, the whole talk, we all know the talk about Francis. I did a video on it. Some of the other lads over here did a video on it. I'm sure MMA Fighting, MMA Junkie, the sun, the star, the moons, and every paper on earth has done an article, a video, a podcast about Francis Ngannou. And me and every single one of them have also said, who's he going to fight? Right? We've all said it. Who is he going to fight? Look, is it going to be the ONE FC champion? Is it going to be the Bellator champion? No, he signs for PFL. Who's he going to fight? Could we get Brock Lesnar out of retirement? Could we get someone out of their UFC contract to fight him? Is he going to fight whoever it might be? Whoever, And then the most likely outcome that people seem to come to is someone's going to win the tournament and he's going to fight them. And he said himself, I'm going to be looking at the tournament with a look at who my first opponent is going to be. So here we go. The main event of PFL 6 is Ante Delija against Maurice Greene. Now, I was doing a podcast recently and we were having that very discussion. And I started talking about Ante Delija. And anyone who's listening to this, hopefully you've been watching my videos for the last couple of years, and I have been doing all the PFL previews. I've watched Ante Delija fights over and over and over again, And I'm sitting back here thinking, I'm watching this video and that video and that video, and people are disrespecting Ante Delija. The lads can't even pronounce his name. Lads are there like, well, who's this guy? He's a good fighter. He is a good fighter. And the reason I'm picking this out is he's fighting Maurice Greene, who is a big, 6'7", 6'9", 7 foot heavyweight who can throw bombs. And if he goes in there and they promote, I really think the PFL need to promote this fight rightly. If they promote it rightly, show the Maurice Greene knockout highlights and show him fighting Delija, and then I think Delija will win this fight. Show him winning it. Well, then you have a guy you can build into fighting Francis Ngannou. Have Francis cage side and watch Delija taking down Greene, beating him up or beating him on the feet. Like, Delija can fight. Delija can fight. He's a very, very good fighter. Now, am I saying he's going to beat Francis, or should he be the one? I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying he's a bad opponent. I'm not saying I wouldn't like to see that fight. But, you know, Maurice Greene's a tough fight as well. As I said, he's a big, tough knockout artist. But it's a fight, I think, that PFL need to promote. I really think they do. I really need they need... I really think they need to see this opportunity and take it and use it because they have this star. There's going to be people talking about this fight as they come up to it. I'm doing it now, but like I'm doing it a bit out from the fight, you know, probably 2-3 weeks out from the fight. But when it comes closer, I think PFL need to be ready. And this is a big opportunity. And it's an interesting fight as well. I think if Ante Delija goes out there, he wins it. Obviously, he'll be, you know, go down to the tournament or whatever. But, you know, it'll take another couple of fights for him to win it and all of that. But still, now is the time to start pushing that and start putting a guy on a run. And look, if it's Maurice Greene, he goes out there and knocks him out. Maybe he'll go on and win the tournament and he could be the guy as well. Right? So, big fight. Very interesting one. And the last one I'm going for here and looking at is honestly, I think maybe my favorite fight. Well, maybe not necessarily my favorite fight, but maybe my favorite, like, I think I know who's going to win and I can't wait to see what they do next type. And that is UFC and ABC, June 24th, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. I am as high on Topuria as I have been on anyone in a very, very long time. I think he's the truth. I think he's the answer. I think he'll beat everyone in that division, not named Volkanovski. And you know what? He might beat him too. Maybe not now. Maybe Shawnee calm down now a small bit. Maybe calm down there a small bit now. I don't know about that one, but he is brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. And you know what? Josh Emmett's a good fighter too. Don't make no mistake about that. Josh Emmett can fight. He will go in there and he'll be a test for him. He will show him things he's not seen before. He's not going to go in, take one shot and go down like past opponents. And now some haven't, like we saw the Jai Herbert fight. Jai Herbert gave him all he could do until he, you know, ate that one big Topuria shot, but it was after a while, you know. And if he can do that to him, Emmett will see that and think, well, maybe I can do the same too, and I can outlast this guy or something like that. Now, do I think that'll happen? Not necessarily. I think Topuria is going to come out of this looking really, really good, and I think he is going to I think he's going to put on a show here. I really, really do. And I think it's going to be an absolutely great fight. But it's, do you know what? Why I love this and why it's on my list as well? It's because, as I said to start it off with there, it's what comes after it. Because sometimes in MMA, it's very hard for us to have an unbelievably good champion and be excited about his next contender in a sporting sense, right? Or in a competitive sense. In a competitive sense. A case in point is Volkanovski against Yair Rodriguez, right? I think that's going to be a brilliant fight. Now, am I looking forward to it being a brilliant matchup in that anyone could win? Not necessarily. Like, Yair can go out and knock him out, absolutely. You know, he can knock anyone out. But I think most people think Volkanovski is going to win that fight, you know, well, right? But I think it'll be really fun. Who else is there in that division? Like, Max Holloway's fought him 4 times now, so that's not happening again. Who else in that division is going to be the guy who's going to give him the competitive matchup? Was Arnold Allen it? You know, maybe he could have been, but then he lost to Holloway, so he's not going to be it for a while anyway. So we can forget about that for a while. He'll have to win a couple to get back there. Probably fucking 12 to get back there if the last run is anything to go by. But you know what I mean? You know, who is it? It's Topuria if he wins. In my opinion, it is Topuria. He's a smashing fighter in more ways than one. In more ways than one. And if he smashes Emmett, oh boy, I think he'd be right in there. I think it'd be hard stopped to fight for the title next. So that's definitely one of my fights this month. I cannot wait for it. And you know what? It's great to see, like, from the opening fight I talked about, in one championship, to the Bellator fights, to the KSW fights, to the PFL fights, to the UFC fights. We have a lot of MMA, but we have a lot of good MMA as well, thankfully, and hopefully that'll never change. All right, we will leave it there. Those are my 5/8 fights for the month of June. It's going to be a good one. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. I'll see you all next time.